Have you ever heard of a giant island made of trash floating in the middle of the ocean? Many people picture it clearly. They imagine a huge, solid landmass. You could walk on it, they think. It's a place made entirely of plastic bottles, old toys, and fishing nets. This trash island is often described as being twice the size of Texas. It sounds like something from a science fiction movie. The idea is powerful. It creates a shocking image in our minds. It makes us think about all the waste we create every single day and wonder where it all ends up. This picture of a garbage continent is a strong symbol of our pollution problem. This powerful image has spread far and wide. You might see it in cartoons or hear it talked about in news reports. The idea is simple to understand. It's a very visual way to explain a complex problem. People imagine ships having to navigate around this massive floating dump. They picture birds nesting on piles of plastic bags. The concept is so strong because it feels real. We see trash on our streets and beaches, so it is not a big leap to imagine all that trash collecting in one place in the vast ocean. This mental picture helps people grasp the scale of pollution, even if the picture itself isn't entirely accurate. The legend of Trash Island serves as a stark warning. It tells a story of human carelessness. It suggests we have treated our beautiful oceans like a giant garbage can. For years, this story has been used to get people's attention. It's a call to action. The thought of a new, unnatural continent made of our own waste is deeply disturbing. It pushes us to question our habits. Are we really letting our planet get this polluted? The story makes the problem feel urgent and massive. It's a tale that sticks with you long after you first hear it, making you look at a simple plastic bottle in a whole new way. But is this picture true? Can you really book a trip to see a solid island of trash? The idea has captured our collective imagination. It has become a modern myth. It's a story we tell to scare ourselves into being better. Like all good myths, it contains a kernel of truth. The truth is hidden within the exciting story. Our oceans are indeed filled with a shocking amount of plastic. But the reality is different from the myth. It is less like a solid island and more like something else. Understanding the difference is key to truly understanding the problem and finding real solutions to help our amazing oceans. The story of a great garbage island didn't just appear out of nowhere. It started with a real discovery. In 1997, a sailor and ocean researcher named Charles Moore was sailing home. He was returning from a sailing race that took him from California to Hawaii. Instead of taking the usual route, he decided to take a shortcut. This path led him through a part of the ocean that ships usually avoid. It is a calm area called the North Pacific Subtropical Gyre. A gyre is a large system of rotating ocean currents. For days as he sailed, he saw something strange. He was surrounded by plastic. Captain Moore described what he saw. He said that everywhere he looked, he saw plastic debris. There were bottle caps, small plastic fragments, and other bits of trash. He wrote that he couldn't find a clear spot in the water. He felt like he was sailing through a plastic soup. This was not a solid island he could stand on. It was a huge area of water filled with tiny and large pieces of floating plastic. He was shocked by what he found. He knew this was a big problem. He realized that the ocean currents were acting like a giant whirlpool, collecting trash from all over the world. After his journey, Captain Moore started to talk about what he had seen. He wanted to warn people. He began calling the area the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. He wrote articles and gave talks. To get people to understand the size of the problem, he used strong language. He compared the area to the size of Texas. The media loved the story. The phrase garbage patch soon turned into Trash Island in many news reports. This new name was much more dramatic. It created that powerful image of a solid floating landmass of junk, which was easier for people to picture than a thin soup of plastic flecks. The idea gained huge attention in the mid-2000s. News articles, documentaries, and online posts spread the story of the eighth continent made of trash. The myth was born from a real observation but was exaggerated for impact. Captain Moore's discovery was incredibly important. He was one of the first to bring this massive pollution problem to the world's attention. But the way the story was told created a misunderstanding. The public latched onto the island idea. This myth has stuck around ever since, shaping how we think about ocean pollution for better and for worse. So, if it's not a solid island, what is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? It's important to correct this common misconception. You cannot see the garbage patch from space. Most satellites cannot detect it. Why? Because the patch is not a solid, dense mass. It is not an island. Instead, it is a huge area in the North Pacific Ocean where trash is gathered. The trash is spread out over a very large region. The currents of the North Pacific Gyre spin slowly, pulling debris into this calm center. Think of it less like a garbage dump and more like a very thin, cloudy soup with some bigger chunks floating in it. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is actually made of two main collections of trash. There is the Western Garbage Patch, located near Japan, and there is the Eastern Garbage Patch, located between Hawaii and California. A long current of debris connects these two areas. The total size is enormous, estimated to be around 1.6 million square kilometers. That is bigger than many countries. But within this massive area, the concentration of plastic varies. In some places you might see a floating bottle or a fishing net. In other places you might not see anything at all with the naked eye because the plastic is so small. Most of the plastic in the garbage patch is not floating on the surface like a rubber duck in a bathtub. The majority of the plastic pieces are tiny. They are called microplastics. These are fragments smaller than your little fingernail. They are created when larger plastic items like bottles and bags are broken down by the sun and waves over many years. These tiny particles float just below the surface of the water. This makes the water look cloudy or hazy. This is why scientists often call it a plastic soup. It's a mix of water and countless tiny plastic specks, which is why you can't just scoop it all up easily. This reality is almost more worrying than the myth of an island. A solid island could, in theory, be cleaned up. You could imagine sending ships to haul it away. But how do you clean up a soup? How do you filter out trillions of tiny plastic pieces from a vast area of the ocean without harming all the tiny sea creatures that live there too? The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not a simple problem. It is a complex environmental disaster zone. Correcting the myth of the trash island is the first step toward understanding the true nature of the challenge we face in our oceans. When scientists study the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, they find that almost all of the debris is plastic. This is because plastic does not biodegrade like wood or paper. It doesn't rot away. Instead, it photodegrades. The sun's ultraviolet light breaks it down into smaller and smaller pieces. So, a plastic bottle that falls into the ocean can exist for hundreds of years. It just becomes a collection of countless microplastic fragments. These tiny pieces are the main ingredient in the plastic soup. They are everywhere in the water column, from the surface down to the deep sea floor. While microplastics make up most of the number of pieces, larger items make up most of the weight. A huge portion of the plastic mass in the garbage patch comes from a surprising source: fishing gear. Scientists have found that abandoned, lost, or discarded fishing nets make up a large percentage of the total plastic. These are often called ghost nets. They are a huge problem because they are designed to catch marine life. When they are lost at sea, they continue to float in the currents for decades, trapping and killing fish, turtles, dolphins, and whales in a process known as ghost fishing. Besides fishing gear, the patch contains many items from our daily lives. These are things that were used on land and somehow made their way to the sea. Researchers find plastic bottles, food containers, plastic bags, and bottle caps. They find toothbrushes, lighters, and pieces of old toys. Many of these larger items have writing on them, which allows scientists to trace where they came from. They have found items from countries all around the Pacific Rim. This shows that ocean pollution is a global problem. The trash from one country can easily end up on the other side of the ocean. So, the garbage patch is a complex mix. It is made of trillions of tiny microplastic specks that cloud the water. It also has larger, more visible items floating within it. The most dangerous of these are the massive ghost nets that drift silently through the sea. It's a sad collection of human-made materials that do not belong in the ocean. Understanding what the patch is made of helps us figure out where it comes from. It also helps us see how dangerous it is for the animals that call the ocean their home. The plastic soup is a toxic recipe that we have created. So, how does all this trash end up in the middle of the ocean? The journey of a piece of plastic to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch can actually be a pretty long one. A significant amount of the plastic pollution starts on land. Just think about, say, a plastic bottle dropped on a street in a coastal city. When it rains, the rainwater washes that bottle into a storm drain. That storm drain leads to a river. The river then flows out into the ocean. Once it's in the ocean, it can be carried by currents for thousands of miles. Scientists believe that about 80% of the plastic in the ocean comes from land-based sources like this. Rivers are essentially like highways for trash. They carry waste from deep inland all the way to the coast. Many major rivers around the world, especially in areas with poor waste management systems, dump enormous amounts of plastic into the sea every single day. Coastal cities also contribute directly. Trash from overflowing bins, illegal dumping, and litter on beaches can all be blown or washed into the water. This is why keeping our cities and rivers clean is one of the most important things we can do to protect the oceans. The problem doesn't start in the ocean, it starts in our own communities. Now, the other 20% of plastic pollution comes from activities at sea. This is called ocean-based source pollution. The fishing industry is a major contributor, as we saw with ghost nets. Fishing boats can lose nets, lines, and traps during storms or accidents. Sometimes old gear is even deliberately thrown overboard. Cargo ships also play a part. Huge container ships cross the ocean every day. Sometimes containers can fall off during rough weather, releasing all of their contents into the sea. In the past, it was also common for both commercial ships and personal boats to simply dump their trash directly overboard, a practice that is now illegal in many places, but still happens. Once the plastic is in the ocean, it begins its long journey. The currents of the gyre slowly pull it inward. It might take years for a piece of plastic from the coast of California or Japan to reach the center of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Along the way, it breaks down into smaller pieces and becomes part of the plastic soup. This long, slow process means that the garbage patch is constantly growing. Every day, more trash from our rivers, cities, and ships joins the currents, adding to the massive accumulation of plastic that's already out there. The plastic floating in our oceans is not just ugly, it's incredibly dangerous for marine animals. One of the biggest threats is entanglement. Seals, sea lions, turtles, and seabirds often get caught in ghost nets and other large plastic debris. They can't escape. Trapped in the nets, they can drown, starve, or suffer serious injuries. Even something as simple as a plastic six-pack ring can be a deadly trap for a small animal. This is a slow and painful way for these beautiful creatures to die. The ghost nets that drift for decades can kill thousands of animals over their long, silent journey. Another major problem is ingestion. Many marine animals mistake plastic for food. A sea turtle might think a floating plastic bag is a jellyfish, its favorite food. Seabirds often mistake small, colorful plastic fragments for fish eggs and feed them to their chicks. When an animal eats plastic, it can cause serious problems. The plastic can block their stomach or intestines, making them feel full when they are not. This leads to starvation. The plastic has no nutritional value, so the animals slowly waste away. For many seabird colonies, scientists have found nests filled with the skeletons of chicks whose stomachs were full of plastic. Plastic also acts like a sponge for toxins. Harmful chemicals in the ocean can stick to the surface of tiny plastic particles. When fish and other small creatures eat these microplastics, the toxins enter their bodies. Then larger fish eat the smaller fish, and the toxins move up the food chain. This process is called biomagnification. By the time the toxins reach top predators like tuna, sharks, or even humans who eat seafood, the concentration of these harmful chemicals can be very high. This means the plastic pollution in the ocean could end up on our own dinner plates, posing a risk to human health. Finally, floating plastic debris can transport invasive species. Small crabs, barnacles, and algae can attach themselves to a piece of floating plastic. The plastic then acts like a raft, carrying these organisms to new parts of the ocean where they don't belong. These invasive species can disrupt delicate marine ecosystems. They can outcompete native species for food and habitat, causing a chain reaction that damages the entire local environment. The impact of plastic pollution is complex and far-reaching, affecting individual animals, entire ecosystems, and even our own health. Even though scientists have explained that the garbage patch is more like a soup, the myth of a solid trash island is still very popular. Why does this idea persist? One big reason is the media. The image of a floating island of junk is shocking and easy to show. It makes for a dramatic headline or a powerful visual in a news report. It grabs people's attention much more effectively than a complex explanation about microplastics and ocean gyres. Journalists and filmmakers often use this simplified image because it tells a quick and powerful story about pollution. Environmental and advocacy groups also sometimes use the trash island imagery in their campaigns. They know that this myth creates a strong emotional reaction. When people hear about a garbage island twice the size of Texas, They are more likely to feel outraged and want to take action. They are more likely to donate to a cause or sign a petition. While their goal is to raise awareness and fight pollution, using the myth can be a double-edged sword. It gets people's attention, but it also spreads misinformation about the true nature of the problem, which can make finding the right solutions more difficult. The myth is also simple to understand and share. In our fast-paced world of social media, simple and shocking ideas travel the fastest. A picture of a man standing on a pile of plastic bottles in the ocean, even if it's photoshopped, is more likely to go viral than a scientific chart showing plastic concentrations. People share these images without checking the facts because the message feels right. The story of Trash Island has become a piece of modern folklore, a tale passed from person to person as a warning about our wasteful society. It's a powerful narrative that is hard to correct once it has taken root in our culture. Finally, the myth persists because it offers a deceptively simple problem. An island is a single contained thing. This makes us think there could be a single, simple solution. You could just go there and clean it up, right? This is more comforting than the reality. The truth, that our oceans are filled with a soupy mix of trillions of microscopic plastic particles spread over millions of square miles, is much more daunting. The Trash Island myth, in a strange way, makes the problem seem more manageable than it actually is. It's easier to imagine cleaning an island than it is to imagine filtering an entire ocean. It is crucial to move past the myth and face the sobering truth. The reality of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not less serious than the myth. In many ways, it is far more serious. A solid island would be a visible monument to our pollution. But the plastic soup is an invisible, creeping threat that has infiltrated the entire ocean ecosystem, from the surface to the sea floor. It is not a single location we can clean up. It is a global contamination of our planet's largest and most vital life support system. The problem is more widespread and insidious than any single island could ever be. The truth is that we cannot simply scoop up the pollution. Many of the plastic particles are the same size as plankton, the tiny organisms that form the base of the entire marine food web. If we were to use giant nets fine enough to catch the microplastics, we would also catch and kill countless essential marine creatures. This would cause catastrophic damage to the ocean's ecosystem. Cleaning up the plastic soup is a massive technological and ecological challenge. It's like trying to take the milk out of a cup of coffee once you've already stirred it in. Furthermore, the plastic we see floating on the surface of the gyres is only a tiny fraction of the total problem. Scientists estimate that about 70% of all marine plastic debris actually sinks to the ocean floor. This means that for every plastic bottle you see floating, there are many more that have sunk into the deep ocean. This plastic on the seabed smothers delicate deep-sea corals and other organisms, disrupting ecosystems we are only just beginning to understand. The visible garbage patch is just the tip of the plastic iceberg. The full extent of the problem is hidden in the depths. So, while the Trash Island myth is inaccurate, the real problem of plastic pollution is a true planetary crisis. It's not a single, contained issue. It's a systemic problem that affects the health of all marine life and ultimately, us. Acknowledging this difficult truth is essential. We must stop looking for a simple fix for a mythical island and start focusing on the complex, global solutions needed to address the reality of a contaminated ocean. The problem is big, and it is serious, but facing the truth is the only way we can begin to solve it effectively. The problem of ocean plastic is huge, but it is not hopeless. We can turn the tide on this pollution, but it will require action on every level, from individuals to governments. The most important step is to stop the plastic at its source. We need to dramatically reduce our production and consumption of single-use plastics. As individuals, we can make conscious choices every day. We can use reusable water bottles, coffee cups, and shopping bags. We can say no to plastic straws and choose products with less plastic packaging. Every piece of plastic we refuse to use is one less piece that could end up in the ocean. Companies and industries have a massive role to play. They need to redesign products and packaging to use less plastic. They can innovate and use alternative materials that are biodegradable or more easily recycled. This is called extended producer responsibility, where the company that makes a product is also responsible for what happens to it at the end of its life. Governments can encourage this by creating new policies. They can ban certain single-use plastic items like bags or cutlery. They can also invest in and improve waste management and recycling infrastructure, especially in coastal communities and along major rivers. While we work to stop the flow of new plastic, we also need to address the plastic already in the ocean. Several innovative organizations are developing technologies to clean up the existing garbage patches. For example, the Ocean Cleanup Project has developed large floating systems designed to concentrate and collect plastic from the gyres. They are also creating interceptors to capture trash in rivers before it reaches the sea. These cleanup technologies are not a perfect solution. They can't get all the microplastics, but they are an important part of a larger strategy to remove the most harmful debris, like ghost nets. Finally, awareness and education are key. We must continue to share the true story of ocean plastic pollution. By moving past the myth of Trash Island and explaining the real science, we can inspire more effective action. When people understand that the problem starts on land in our cities and rivers, they are more empowered to make a difference in their own communities. The health of our oceans is connected to everything: the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the stability of our climate. Knowing the facts is what will fuel a global movement to protect our blue planet for generations to come. The time for action is now.